What is the future of action cameras? It's this. It will replace all fixed lens cameras. It's more than just using it on a selfie stick, chugging on a skateboard, or going down a hill on a snowboard, or skiing, or ice skating. It's much more than that. It's the ability to see around you at all times and make it shift and follow you. It's its own personal film crew. I paid obscene amounts of money on other cameras to be able to do this, like this thing, and it still doesn't do as good a job, which angers me. Water sports and outdoor stuff is my thing. So having a camera that can look at everything and then you can just reframe it to wherever you want it to zoom into is perfect. And it also has a pretty nice in-post crop like that. So it has a zoom lens. In order to get a zoom lens for something that can see everything, including all the crucial parts, you're generally gonna have to have a friend that's nice or pay somebody with skill. None of those things are cheap. But right now I'm doing this all myself. My bigger thing when I really started to like this camera, the theory was put it on a chesty. Everybody puts a GoPro on a chesty, and no matter where I move on my body, I can reframe it and shift it and zoom in and out to grab the actual target here. The target is this fish right now that I just hooked. I was able to show my hook set. I was able to follow the rod, able to follow my hands. I was able to use tracking software to follow that, even in sharp movements that are really too quick to move around for you to do keyframe edits. We'll be talking about all that later, but see this here? We have a complete frame in. And in the Insta360 Studio app, you can pan and zoom in and out at will with the turn of your mouse. That is like an invaluable thing. An action camera that actually has a little bit of zoom to it without having to do it in post with a bunch of keyframes later. We can just do it now without keyframes. A lot of people who are doing videos on this are underutilizing that tool and the video looks kind of fisheyed. You can completely fix that all in post. Let's show you what happens when you get this camera with a bunch of accessories, like this package. Came with a lot. They have a bunch of assorted packages you can choose from. Let's go over some of these things. We'll get to the camera later, but right now, let's check out the selfie stick. This is what it does. It allows you to get a 3D in-person view of yourself. The software inside the camera itself hides the selfie stick. It doesn't hide the shadow though, sharks. But as far as like tracking software, it's very easy to edit and post on the phone or on a PC. Now let's check out the camera. What does it come with? What does it look like? What are its features? This kit came with a 64GB SD card. Really, you need a 128 or 256 to get the max like use out of this thing because it records at 5.3K all the time. So that's a lot of data. It has a USB-C port for charging and for a microphone jack. It also comes with camera and lens protection, which is really paramount because any scratch or dirtiness on the lens really affects the ability of the camera. It has this bullet time mount that does this pretty cool thing. I mounted it into slow-mo at I think 3K 100 frames per second and got that shot. The camera mounts to a 1/4-20 adapter screw, which is what most professional cameras of today mount to. Very easy. Mounts right to a Yolotek stick, which is the key thing of trying to catch anything on a boat. But I really find this camera to be much more useful as a static camera in my general direction because it's not actually a static camera, it's a 360 camera and it will see everything I do when I'm on a project. I just put it to a flex mount like this and I clamp that thing to something. And then the camera does its magic. It follows you around and as long as you're in its general vicinity, it can zoom in on you at a fairly wide amount. If you pull away, move it, but it's not like you have to worry about being in frame. The thing follows you. I mean, look at this. I'd have to do a whole lot of work in post with just a normal camera with a static lens to get stuff like that. It can be done, but not as well. And I mean, it's way harder just to get not as good cropping and footage. And DIY projects like these are so hard to keep the actual audience engaged. So constant movement inside the clip is really key. And you get constant movement all the time with this because it sees everything. You can move it anywhere you want. Right now we have it mounted to a high-speed mount that we generally use for a GoPro, and it's working just fine for this camera. It even has its own cage that if you really want to kind of boost up your game here, you want to add lights, you want to add a shotgun mic with a windsock, you can do all that stuff. You can even add an external battery cap pod so this thing can run for extended periods of time inside the cage with ultimate protection. But any way you want to do it, I will say the unique footage this camera can grasp at any specific moment is totally worth it. If you had to choose one camera, just one, to record all your action, all your projects, if you needed help, I would get this one. It fits on any GoPro mount. It even disappears itself from the GoPro mount. But I really love this thing on the chesty, which is what all YouTube fishermen and anybody trying to capture a fishing experience uses a GoPro on the chesty because it's the most erratic movement. You can use it on your head but then it gives people motion sickness, but then you can use it on a chest. But right now, normally when I bend down like that, it's recording the bottom of my boat. It's not recording what I need. When I set the hook, it like looks left or it looks right. It looks everywhere my chest points and not where I needed to point. But this, I can point it right at the fish. But showing you all the cool things this camera can do is just one thing. Let's show you how to actually edit it in post inside the Insta360 Studio app for Mac or for PC that you can download directly on their site. And we'll show you how to get the most out of this camera. When you're ready to edit, put the SD card inside the computer and open up the folder. The footage is so unique that it automatically knows to open up the Studio app. Select Import All, and that will import all available apps. It will not import the LRV files, it'll only import the vid files. The LRV files you should just get rid of and erase, because all those things are useful for is low resolution videos on the actual camera itself to preview, but in post they're pretty useless. In post meaning in edit. To start your clip, drag the mouse on the screen where you want your clip to start, and then add a keyframe by pressing that yellow plus sign, and that will actually determine where your camera goes. Every time you press one, move the screen around, and then every time you play it back, your footage should be moving with the keyframe. In a spot like this, where I'm in visible view or your target's in visible view, you can go ahead and use this highlight tool, which is deep track. When you start that, it will just track you. So no matter where you move this camera lens, up or down, to the side, it will always track the subject, as long as the subject is in clear view and doesn't move so erratically that it just gets out of frame. If you have two keyframes short together, then any movement between them will be pretty fast, but if you wait a little bit and you space them out like this, then any movement you have between them will be slower and more cinematic. So go ahead and place them, and make sure you start at the frame you want, and you can watch to make sure they work. If you don't, just Control Z that stuff and get rid of them. If you want a more erratic one zooming in and out as it's panning from one side to another, then you can add multiple ones and you can stack them. You'll start seeing them stack on 2, 3, 4 at a time. If they're very close together, trying to work together. Once you've got a video clip to the desired length and edits that you want, go ahead and press that yellow upload icon on the side, and you can go ahead and name, choose the bit rate. You can choose the resolution right there. We're going to go ahead and mark it for 4K because it's sampling down from 5.3K, and that's how we're going to render it. And you'll see it rendering right up there and on the bottom. And when it's done, it'll go to the export query, and you can hit that yellow icon up there on the top, the SD card looking icon, and that'll shift you back to all your videos so you can go ahead and edit the new one. When you stack multiple keyframes close together, you can zoom in and out of your footage as you're panning, which is very useful. So if you just do one keyframe and then you wait and you do another one a long way, you can kind of slow pan. But if you need erratic movement in and out, like you're trying to track your subject and give it kind of a very erratic look or a very kind of engaging look, you can do that by spacing them and or panning out. You have to click on the keyframe though to control it. You can't click on them if they're stacked together. You're going to have to go ahead and press Control plus or Command plus, and you can widen the timeline. That strip there where the yellow dots are, that's a timeline. You can stretch it and then you can see, but you have to be able to see each individual keyframe in order to edit. You can click on the keyframe, you can edit it at any given time. The keyframes are your best friend aside from that deep track tool. Now let's look at it from a static point of what it can do for you DIY. Right now, I just found out that I have a water pipe leak underneath my yard, which is pretty terrifying. Right now, I am just getting footage of what I'm going to do with this, but I've decided in this horrible event that we're going to try and make lemonade out of lemons and do a video about this, and I think post it to my DIY channel. Here we're going to go ahead and zoom it in just to give it a dramatic effect. Fast forward a little bit and you can see we're on a different clip of me actually realizing it's going to be a lot more work than I thought. When you edit this footage, make sure it's at the highest resolution, and when you're framing it in and out with the keyframes, make sure that when you're done using it, it looks linear. If it's out too much, if it's too wide, it's going to fish by, and it's going to look like you recorded it with a Ring camera from Walmart. It's not going to look good. I was trying to go for a pan effect and kind of a dramatic deal there. I even put the deep track on the shovel, which it did record for a period of time and then lost it. I really think that thing is supposed to record people, not objects, but it does work on objects. Then I scrapped this whole thing because I thought it was a terrible edit, and I redid all the keyframes, and now it looks awesome. Among the 4 little tool icons right there, that one, the lightning, you hit that and the red bar appears. Whatever you stretch that red bar across, you can now speed up the time. And you can speed up all the way to 6,400 times or 64 times, which is not bad. Think of that as about 6,400 times the actual speed if you base the speed from 1 to 100. So it's not too bad. You can speed up parts that you don't really want, and that's pretty crucial because this software does not have a snip tool. It's one of the only editing softwares I've ever seen that doesn't have a snip tool. It does have a snip where you can trim the edges of the clips, and those are those white icons right there next to the soundbar icon, but that's it. It doesn't actually have an individual snip where you can cut out entire clips, which would be much more useful in the whole process of Stitch, where you can really kind of edit more of a true video or a raw video that you can drop later on into your final post. You're going to do a final revision. And there are a few more tools that you can use that you can just check out for yourself, but these are how to operate the timeline, and that is more than enough to get you guys started. The only things that I would actually fix on this, really, if it was my product, would be in the studio, I would have a scissor tool where I could actually cut and delete entire pieces of the clip, not just trimming, because all I can do right now is trim. I thought that was the only thing the studio was lacking, and that would be a really, really good engine to do these 360 videos, and then obviously to be later refined in another video editing software. The only thing I didn't really like when I was using it as a chesty or even head or anywhere on my body, every time it saw my fishing rod, it tried to like remove it like it was a selfie stick. So you could see it kind of cut in half. When I had it on the high-speed mount attached to my shallow water anchor, it tried to cut the anchor in half. It tried to cut the side of my gunnel of my boat in half. So it really doesn't like lines. That does distort the footage, and so that would be something I personally would ask Insta360 in their One X2 maybe, or maybe a firmware update that they give you an option to turn that off. Also, a dummy battery. I don't know why any software out there for GoPros, 360 cameras, anything in cameras, they have a dummy battery where it's just a blank. It's just a battery. It fits in there like a battery, but it's not an actual lithium battery. It's just a battery with a wire extension that you can plug into the wall. And that actually reduces a lot of heat, not actual heat from the camera. Because when this thing is out there, baking in the sun, it does weird things to the battery. All action cameras, especially all high-end action cameras doing 4K plus footage, they all get real hot, 4K 60. GoPros are notorious for it. Regular cameras, regular studio cameras, regular high-end mirrorless cameras have dummy batteries, and I just do not get why they have not made dummy batteries for action cameras. They would be extremely useful out there because it gets hot. The summer times when most people are fishing outdoors, and those batteries just cook the camera. The camera gets hot by itself, and the batteries just make it worse. And they're always plugged into the Yolotek stick. There's always an external lead from a USB driver, USB-C drive somewhere. It's time. It's time you guys made a dummy battery. Please do it for me. And it does get hot, it does overheat. It auto shuts down, which is pretty good. It has a pretty good auto shutdown feature. Like, I'm not gonna let you ruin my life, so I'm just gonna shut down feature. But it is really annoying when you're right in the moment and it just, you hear it, dee-dee-dee, shuts off. The GoPros will do it too, but like the GoPros are notorious for overheating, like really stretching it to the max, which I can appreciate. Like it was ride or die. They took it like a G, but they fry. It's not great. And then a lot of times the battery will plump out and just cause problems. Things it has over the GoPro, you don't need an external big bulky thing just to convert it to use an external shotgun mic. You can just put the shotgun mic right in here and it works. With this thing, you got to get this whole big other accessory. They haven't fixed that for like 5 or 6 models. It's pretty annoying. But these are little things. As far as like 360 versus a static lens camera or even a half 360 camera like this GoPro with a Max lens, GoPro seemed the only 360 camera the GoPro ever put out was their GoPro Max, and they never refined on that version. It's just the only one they've ever done, and it's not really as good as this one. Not close. I think they kind of just stood away from that, and they kept pushing the static camera lens with ultra good smooth stabilization. My bigger problem with the GoPro is it seems ever since the Hero 8 all the way up to the 9 and the 10s, specifically the 9s and now the 10, is they just stop working all of a sudden. Like nothing was wrong with it, and then it just freaking stops. And you know what it is? It's a manual update, meaning you have to go get an SD card, download it from their software on the site, insert the SD card, and then it just has to re-update itself. It's called a manual update, which is fine, but a lot of times it happens. These things just stop working. You will never get it to turn on. It was fine one shoot, not good the next. And that has really, really screwed me over a few times on really major shoots where I had 4 of these ready to go and only 2 or 1 of them would turn on. It's like I traveled from Arizona to Tennessee. It got to Tennessee, wouldn't work. Couldn't figure it out. Called GoPro, complained after being on there for an hour of tech support because I had like over $1,000 worth of their cameras. And they're, oh, we got to do a manual update. So then you got to do firmware updates, auto updates. What is the point of the manual update when there was nothing wrong with it? So that's like a paranoia. These are unreliable now. GoPro and all the technology you know, and they're terrible. But even without that, there's glitches, there is file corruptions, it just shutting off, it having glitchy footage when it gets too hot. Like these things, there are other things that Insta360 makes, like the Go 2, which is more or less a static single frame camera lens, just like this one instead of a 360, and it does that without any of the glitches or any of the stupid manual updates. So yeah, I think really the best competitor to really shut down GoPro's line, unless GoPro like stops having too many yes men on their panel and really gets their stuff in order. I mean, you guys had a pretty good run because you've been the incumbent for such a long time as the dominant action camera on there, but really the more you start putting out super unreliable cameras, somebody like this who actually cares about quality is gonna usurp the whole title. There's a special promo code link for this camera in the description area and in the comment section, along with the Insta360 One RS. I would definitely check them out both. They are both fantastic cameras, but the RS is on a different level. I can't wait to review that one and show it to you guys as well. Thank you much for taking the time to view this video. Like, subscribe, share, all that fun stuff. I really much appreciate it. Thank you.